Nobody really explains how families actually leave the UK and travel the world. So this video is going to be all about that, step by step. If you've ever thought about leaving the UK with your kids, but it feels so out of reach and impossible, you're not the only one. Most people think you need loads of money, a perfect plan, or some kind of, different situation, but that's not true. We left the UK back in 2024 with our then 6-year-old son, and we travelled the world full time. Now we're back in the UK for a couple of months, and we're planning to do it all again. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the exact steps we took last time, and we're going to take again this time to pack up all our stuff and leave the UK to travel and world school with our family. So step one is making the decision that you want something different. I think, to be honest, most people never really make that decision, do they? I have spoken to so many people who talk about wanting to leave the UK. They talk about the fact that everything's too expensive, cost of living's gone up, they're not happy, the weather's shit, all of the things. But they never actually go, but you know what, I'm going to do this. This is something that's really important to me and I need to go. They just stay stuck. And they keep talking about how fed up they are and how stuck they feel and how they want something different for themselves and their kids. And they talk about it again and again and again and actually never do anything about it. And I think, of course it's overwhelming. There's so many things to think about. There's so many fears. There's so many what ifs. What if it goes wrong? What if my kid doesn't like it? What if we run out of money? What if there's a war breaks out, which is just what's happened when I was in India, and we got stuck. What if, yeah? But if you keep saying, what if, you'll be saying the same thing forever. You'll be in your 60s and 70s, your kids will have grown up and left school and left home, and you still wouldn't have done anything. You just have to make the decision that this is what you want to do. So I really believe that the first step isn't about figuring out how you make money or deciding where you want to go or anything like that. The first step is actually making the decision that you are going to do this. Step two is figuring out how you're going to afford it, because I think this is the biggest barrier for pretty much everybody. How can we fund this? How can we afford to pay for anything we need to keep paying for in the UK? How can we afford to live in those countries that we're going to go to? How can we afford flights? What about income? And these are all really, really important questions. All of this is really valid, and I think it is step two. It's the most important thing you need to think of. So I believe that you don't have to be rich to travel and world school. In fact, most people I've met are not rich. They're just normal people with normal incomes and normal lives. I'm definitely not rich. We are not a wealthy family, but we do make this work. So there are lots of ways you can make this work. So first of all, obviously, if you have debts or financial responsibilities in the UK, you have to figure those out. So if you have a mortgage, if you have car repayments, if you have loans, then obviously these things need to be discussed and figured out first. And there are lots of ways that you can make this work. People do go travelling and they still have a mortgage. They still have loans to pay off. First time I went travelling, I had a bank loan, and I just made sure I had enough to pay it off. It was hard, and it isn't always easy, but it doesn't have to be impossible. So when you're thinking about how I'm going to have any income when I'm away, the first thing obviously is, can you work online? Can you work remotely? Can you transfer your skills to a remote job? Can you transfer your skills to freelancing? If these things aren't possible, can you start setting up your own business? Can you start promoting your skills and your experience in a different way? Is there something you haven't thought of yet, haven't looked into? There are so many options. There are so many options. Most people, I think, can work online one way or another. It's just about figuring out what your skills are and how you can transfer those to an online remote job of some sort. If this is something you're thinking about, there is a free guide that I've created to earn your first £100 online. I've linked it in the description, and it gives you lots of ideas about how you could make your first £100. And from there, it will give you more experience. It will give you more confidence to start thinking about how you can make more money online. So the link's in the description for that. Another alternative is just to have savings. A lot of people travel with their savings and don't earn anything online. In fact, that's when we used to travel before having Jai. We just managed on savings. So we worked really, really hard. We saved as much as we possibly could. We also rented out our house, so we had that money coming in. We sold most of our stuff. We sold cars. We sold, our belongings. So we had that as well. If you can save enough and you have a really substantial amount of money, then that will last you a long time. If you go somewhere like Southeast Asia, for example, £1,000 will last you a month easily. It's just about how you manage your finances while you're away. But savings is a really good option. You don't have to have money coming in. If you have a nice fat savings pot, why not? But obviously having money coming in, having some income is ideal, because then you can relax a bit more and hopefully not dip into your savings too much. So step 3 is thinking about schooling. So what are your child's options for school? There are loads of options. Obviously it depends on the age of your kids, but there's home education, so as in you can educate your kids yourselves. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can have an online curriculum if you want, or you can teach them as like unschooling, they call it, so not through a formal curriculum. There's worldschooling hubs. I think some countries have the most incredible worldschooling communities, so families from all over the world spend time in certain places. Thailand's a really good example. Bali, Goa. We just spent 5 months in Goa, and there was a huge worldschooling community there. So you get to connect with other families. Sometimes they have special hubs where people can either drop off their kids, like a school, or sometimes they're run by families and they're a lot more flexible, and you are present with them during the day. There's so many things out there. If you're not sure where to start, I just advise you to start looking on Facebook, because go to the Facebook groups and just type in like worldschooling Goa or worldschooling Bali, and you'll find loads and loads of groups and other families doing exactly the same thing. And it gives you a lot of confidence, I think, when there's other families around doing the same thing. But obviously there's also international schools, so schools in, say, Thailand or Bali or wherever, where you can send your child every day. They cost a bit more, of course. And there's online schools, online curriculums, some of which follow, very closely the UK curriculum or whatever curriculum you follow. And some are more flexible, and, we also hired a private tutor in India as well for Jai. So he had a tutor twice a week, which was great because it took the pressure off me. And it gave him somebody else to learn from, which I think is really important. So then step 4 is decide where you want to go. This can feel really overwhelming, or it can be the easiest step, depends on, what you're doing. Where in the world do you want to go? You need to think about things like climate and weather. So you don't want to be in India in the monsoon season, for example, or, Northern Europe in the middle of winter, or unless you do. If you quite like the cold, that's fine. But for me, that would be horrendous. So yeah, where is a good place to go and when? You want to think about the lifestyle of that place, the culture, the cost of living, of course, is really, really important. So if you're going to go somewhere like, for example, Costa Rica, it's actually quite expensive to live there, to be there. Compared to Vietnam or Cambodia or somewhere like that, which is a lot cheaper. So think about the cost of living for your budget. Visas is a really important thing to think about. Can you get a longer stay visa, or do you have to keep leaving every month if it's just a 30-day visa? So how would that work as well? And then, family-friendly countries, safe countries, is also obviously a really important thing to think about. You don't want to be going somewhere that's there's conflict, or people maybe not so friendly towards kids or your family. So yeah, there's a lot of things to consider, but I think most families tend to go to similar countries and similar areas. So there's a lot of places in Central America where there's lots of homeschooling families, worldschooling families, and obviously Southeast Asia is a huge hub for world schoolers. But most countries have some world schooling families. If you have a look, you'll find something in loads of countries, even Europe. Yeah, it's worth having a look, see what works for you. And then step 5, stop dreaming and start actually planning. This is where it gets fun and gets a bit scary maybe, but it's my favourite part, is to start actually planning this. I love this kind of thing. So you want to think about, the timeline. How long until we can actually go somewhere? Like, where are we going to go? When could we be there? How long do we want to be away for? Are we going to go away for a gap year and come back to the UK? Or are we leaving it quite open-ended? Of course, your savings, your money, like, how's that going to work out? Have a plan for that. The location. And I always say, once you book the flights, it's done. So if you're feeling ready, just book your flights, book them for 6 months' time. And then you've got this deadline, you've got this date, and you can go, right, this is what I'm aiming for. I know that within the next 6 months, I need to get everything else sorted out so that we're going to get on that plane and we're ready to go. And maybe take a trial trip, if that feels good to you. We went around Europe for 3 months with Jai when he was 6. And it was kind of like to see how he would enjoy traveling. Is it a good thing for him? Just, because you don't really know, do you? Your kids, you kind of hope they're going to be okay, but you never really know. I do tend to think that kids are a lot more resilient than adults, and people worry about their kids more than they probably need to. But you do want to make sure they're going to be okay. So we did 3 months in Europe in a van, and Jai absolutely loved it. He had a great time. So we knew that it was the right thing to do. But taking even a week or 2 weeks, it's definitely worth doing. You can figure out what it is that you do need, what you don't need, what works, what doesn't work. And then you can plan your bigger trip from there. It's not about having everything figured out, but you do need to have a plan in place. When we first left the UK, it was kind of, we did have a plan. We did know roughly what we were doing. We actually joined a world school hub in Southeast Asia, which was the best thing we did. It was so amazing. It was called Wander and Wonder. I'll link it in the description below for you. They're fantastic, a traveling world school. But then once that finished, we were on our own, and we were kind of thinking, where should we go next? And we just, we met so many amazing people along the way that now we have friends in so many countries have said, come and spend time with us, or let's meet up here and let's do this. And it's so nice to have that sense of community, global community. So even if you're feeling scared to start with, once you start, your confidence will build and you'll start to feel so much more comfortable and so much more relaxed. And the way of life makes so much more sense than the way of life in the UK, I think. It's easier, it's cheaper. You get this experience, you meet these people, this sense of community. It's amazing. Even though it's not always easy, it is a lot more possible than most people think. If you want more freedom, more travel, and a different way to live with your kids and your family, then I make videos about building income, about leaving the UK, and creating a different type of life. Don't forget to go to the description. We can grab the free guide to make your first £100 online. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the videos.